The person who has hurt you the most in life is not your ex-partner, your boss, or even your parents. The person who has stolen the most opportunities from you, sabotaged the most relationships, and destroyed the most dreams is the one you see in the mirror every morning. You have been your own worst enemy for so long that you think the voice of self-doubt is just reality being honest with you. You have accepted defeat from yourself so many times that you mistake self-sabotage for wisdom and limitation for logic. Every morning you wake up and voluntarily poison your own mind with thoughts that weaken you, words that wound you, and beliefs that bind you to a life far below what you are capable of living. You would never let another person speak to you the way you speak to yourself. Yet you have given yourself permission to be your own destroyer. The most dangerous person in your life is you. But you can also become your greatest ally right now, at this very moment. There is a conversation happening inside your head. You might not even realize it. But two voices are battling for control of your destiny. One voice tells you that you are not good enough, that you have failed too many times, that success belongs to other people but not to you. The other voice whispers something different. It tells you that greatness lives within you, that your past does not define your future, that today can be the beginning of everything you have ever wanted. Most people live their entire lives never realizing that the voice they listen to most determines the life they will live. The conversation you have with yourself every single day is not just thoughts floating in your mind. These words are seeds being planted in the garden of your subconscious. And whatever you plant in that garden will grow. If you plant thoughts of defeat, you will harvest failure. If you plant thoughts of victory, you will harvest success. Let me tell you about Marcus, a man I met several years ago. Marcus was a businessman who had lost everything. His company had failed, his marriage was falling apart, and he was living in a small apartment, wondering how his life had become such a mess. But Marcus discovered something that changed everything. He realized that for years, he had been having the same conversation with himself every morning when he looked in the mirror. He would say things like, "You are such a failure. You cannot do anything right. Why do you even try?" Marcus told me that one morning. He caught himself in the middle of this negative conversation and made a decision that saved his life. He decided to fire his inner critic and hire an inner coach. Instead of telling himself he was a failure, he started saying, "You are learning, you are growing, you are getting stronger every day." The change was not immediate, but it was powerful. Within 6 months, Marcus had started a new business. Within a year, he had rebuilt his marriage. Within 2 years, he was more successful than he had ever been before. The difference was not in his circumstances. The difference was in his conversation. Marcus learned what I want you to understand today. Your life is not controlled by what happens to you. Your life is controlled by what you say to yourself about what happens to you, you see. Your brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what you repeatedly tell it is real. When you constantly tell yourself that you are not smart enough, your brain accepts that as truth and stops looking for ways to prove you wrong. When you tell yourself that you always fail, your brain starts to filter your experiences to confirm that belief. But when you change the conversation, you change the program. When you start telling yourself that you are capable, your brain starts looking for evidence to support that new belief. Science has proven that every word you speak to yourself creates neural pathways in your brain. These pathways become highways of thought that determine how you see the world and how you respond to challenges. The more you travel down a particular pathway, the stronger it becomes. If you have been traveling down pathways of doubt and fear, those highways have become strong. But you can build new highways. You can create new pathways. You can reprogram your internal operating system. This is why I am going to challenge you to do something for the next 3 days that will change your life forever. For 3 days, I want you to become aware of every conversation you have with yourself. I want you to catch yourself when you speak words of defeat and immediately replace them with words of victory. 3 days might not sound like much, but it is enough time to begin building new neural pathways. It is enough time to start programming a new reality. And the reason 3 days is so powerful is because it takes approximately 72 hours for your subconscious mind to begin accepting new programming. In 3 days, you can start to overwrite years of negative self-talk. In 3 days, you can begin to see yourself the way you were meant to be seen. In 3 days, you can start living from a completely different internal reality. But here is what most people do not understand. The conversation you have with yourself is not just affecting your thoughts. It is affecting your emotions, your energy, your confidence, your relationships, and your results. When you tell yourself that you cannot do something, your body responds by producing stress hormones that make you feel anxious and weak. When you tell yourself that you are capable and strong, your body responds by producing hormones that make you feel confident and powerful. Your self-talk is literally programming your biochemistry. It is determining whether you wake up feeling excited about the day or dreading what might go wrong. It is determining whether you approach challenges with courage or hide from opportunities out of fear. It is determining whether people are drawn to your energy or repelled by your negativity. The most successful people in the world have mastered this principle. They understand that success is not just about having the right strategy or working hard. Success begins with having the right conversation with yourself. Before they achieved anything external, they won the battle internal. They learned to speak to themselves the way a champion speaks to a champion. Your words have creative power. The same power that spoke the universe into existence lives within your voice. When you speak to yourself, you are not just thinking thoughts, you are creating reality. You are programming your future. You are determining what kind of person you will become and what kind of life you will live. This is why changing your self-talk is not just about feeling better, it is about becoming better. It is about stepping into the fullness of who you were created to be. Now let me share with you the story of Sarah, an Olympic sprinter who almost quit running before she learned the secret that champions know. Sarah had been training for 8 years, but she kept finishing 4th, 5th, sometimes dead last. Her coach was excellent. Her training was intense, but something was missing. One day, her sports psychologist asked her a simple question. Sarah, what do you say to yourself when you are in the starting blocks? Sarah's answer revealed everything. She said, I usually think about how fast the other runners are. I remind myself not to false start because I did that last time. I tell myself to just try not to embarrass myself. The psychologist stopped her right there. Sarah, he said, you are programming yourself to lose before the race even begins that day. Sarah learned to change her internal language completely. Instead of saying, don't false start, she started saying, perfect timing, perfect start. Instead of thinking about how fast others were, she started saying, I am built for this moment. I am exactly where I belong. Instead of hoping not to embarrass herself, she started declaring, I am here to show the world what I am capable of. The change in Sarah's performance was remarkable. Within 6 months, she went from finishing last to setting personal records. Within a year, she made the Olympic team. The only thing that changed was the conversation she was having with herself. She learned to speak the language of champions. You see, champions do not just think differently than average people, they speak differently to themselves. They use different words, different phrases, different declarations. While average people say, I hope this works out, champions say, I will make this work. While average people say, what if I fail? Champions say, what will I learn from this experience? While average people say, I cannot afford to make mistakes. Champions say, every mistake brings me closer to mastery. The language you use with yourself determines the altitude of your life. If you speak to yourself like a victim, you will live like a victim. If you speak to yourself like a champion, you will rise to championship levels. Your words are not just describing your reality. Listen carefully to how you complete these sentences in your mind. I am the kind of person who, I always, I never, people like me. The way you finish these sentences reveals the programming that is running your life. If you say, I am the kind of person who never gets breaks, then your mind will ensure you never notice opportunities when they come. If you say, I always struggle with money, then your subconscious will sabotage every chance you have to create wealth. But when you change the language, you change the program. Instead of, I always struggle with money, you start saying, I am learning to master money. Instead of, I never get breaks, you declare, I am becoming aware of opportunities everywhere. Instead of, people like me do not succeed, you affirm, I am exactly the kind of person who achieves extraordinary things. This is not just positive thinking, this is strategic thinking. You are literally rewiring your brain for success. Every time you speak words of possibility instead of words of limitation, you are strengthening the neural pathways that lead to breakthrough. Every time you declare your capability instead of your inadequacy, you are programming your subconscious mind to look for ways to prove you right. The mouth is connected to your heart, and your heart is connected to your actions. What you consistently speak about yourself eventually becomes what you believe about yourself. What you believe about yourself determines how you show up in the world. How you show up in the world determines the results you create. The most powerful words you can speak to yourself are not complicated. They are simple declarations that align your thinking with your potential. I am capable. I am learning. I am growing stronger. I belong here. I have what it takes. I am becoming who I was meant to be. These simple phrases, repeated consistently, have the power to transform your entire life experience. But here is what you must understand. The old voice in your head will not go quietly. It has been your companion for years, maybe decades. It will fight to maintain control. When you start speaking new words to yourself, your old programming will resist. It will tell you that you are being unrealistic, that you are lying to yourself, that positive words cannot change negative circumstances. This is exactly why I'm challenging you to do this for 3 days straight. 3 days is long enough to push through the initial resistance. 3 days is long enough to begin experiencing the power of transformed self-talk. 3 days is long enough to prove to yourself that changing your internal conversation changes everything. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, the first conversation you have needs to be with yourself. Before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone else. You need to establish the tone for your day by speaking words of strength and possibility over your life. This is not optional if you want to live at the level you were created for. Let me tell you about Maria, a single mother who broke a cycle that had trapped her family for 3 generations. Maria grew up hearing the same words her mother had heard, and her grandmother before that. We are not the kind of people who get ahead. We work hard, we struggle, and we survive. That is just how it is for people like us. She dropped out of school, worked minimum wage jobs, and lived paycheck to paycheck, just like everyone in her family had done before her. But one day, Maria's 7-year-old daughter came home from school crying. When Maria asked what was wrong, her daughter said, "Mommy, why did you tell me we are poor people? My teacher asked what I want to be when I grow up, and I told her I cannot be anything big because we are poor people." In that moment, Maria realized she had been passing down the same limiting conversation that had kept her family stuck for decades. That night, Maria made a decision that changed everything. She decided to break the cycle of defeat by changing the cycle of conversation. Instead of telling her daughter, "We cannot afford that," she started saying, "Let us find a way to afford that." Instead of "People like us do not go to college," she started saying, "Education is how people like us change our lives." Instead of "Money is hard to come by," she began declaring, "We are learning to create multiple streams of income." But Maria did not stop there. She realized that if she was going to change her daughter's future, she had to change her own internal conversation first. Every morning, she started speaking new words over her life. I am intelligent and capable. I am creating opportunities for my family. I am building a legacy of success. The transformation did not happen overnight, but it happened within 2 years. Maria had earned her high school diploma within 4 years. She had completed a business degree while working full-time. Within 6 years, she had started her own consulting company. Today, Maria's business employs 12 people. And her daughter is on track to become the first person in their family to attend university on a full scholarship. What changed? The circumstances were the same. The challenges were still there. The difference was the conversation. Maria learned that you cannot rise above the level of your own self-talk. If your internal conversation is about limitation, your external reality will be limited. If your internal conversation is about breakthrough, breakthrough becomes possible. This is why most people remain stuck in the same patterns year after year. They keep having the same conversation with themselves that created their current reality. They wake up and immediately start thinking about everything that is wrong, everything they lack, everything they cannot do. Then they wonder why their life never changes. The 3-day protocol I am giving you is designed to interrupt these patterns. For 3 days, every time you catch yourself speaking words of defeat, you will immediately replace them with words of victory. Every time you start thinking about what you cannot do, you will shift to thinking about what you are learning to do. Every time you focus on what is wrong, you will choose to focus on what is becoming right. Day 1 will be the hardest because you are fighting against years of programming. Day 2 will be easier because you are building momentum. Day 3 will feel natural because you are creating a new habit. By the end of 3 days, you will have proven to yourself that you have the power to control the conversation in your head. And when you control the conversation in your head, you control the direction of your life. The cycle of defeat ends when you decide it ends. The cycle of victory begins when you start speaking like someone who is born to win. Now comes the moment when you stop being a spectator of transformation and become the architect of your own new reality. Everything I have shared with you leads to this point where you make the decision to reprogram the most powerful computer in the world, your mind. But you cannot approach this casually. You cannot treat this like a nice idea that you might try when you feel like it. This requires the same intensity that a surgeon brings to an operating room because you are performing surgery on years of damaged thinking. Here is exactly how you create your new internal reality. The moment you wake up, before your feet touch the floor, you speak these words out loud. This is going to be an extraordinary day. I am exactly where I need to be to become who I'm meant to be. I have everything within me to handle whatever comes my way. You speak these words, not because you feel them, but because you are programming them. Feelings follow words, not the other way around. Throughout your day, you become a guardian of your thoughts. Every time you catch yourself about to say, I cannot, you immediately say, I am learning how to. Every time you start to think this is too hard, you replace it with, I am getting stronger. Every time you want to say, I always mess up, you declare, I am improving every day. You are not lying to yourself. You are speaking to the person you are becoming, not the person you have been. When challenges come, and they will come, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of saying, I knew this would not work, you say, this is information I can use to get better. Instead of thinking, I am not cut out for this, you declare, I am being prepared for something greater. But here is what most people miss. You are not just changing your thoughts. You are changing your identity. Every word you speak to yourself is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you consistently speak words of capability, you are voting to become a capable person. When you consistently speak words of abundance, you are voting to become someone who lives abundantly. When you consistently speak words of victory, you are voting to become a victor. Your subconscious mind is listening to every conversation you have with yourself. And it is taking notes. It is saying, oh, this person believes they are intelligent, so I will look for ways to confirm their intelligence. This person believes they are capable of achieving their goals, so I will help them notice opportunities. This person believes they are worthy of success, so I will stop sabotaging their efforts. This is why you must speak to yourself as if you're already the person you want to become. Not arrogantly, but confidently. Not pretending, but preparing. Your new internal reality begins with new internal conversations. You start saying, I am the kind of person who follows through on commitments. I am someone who finds solutions. I am becoming financially free. I am attracting the right relationships. The life I was designed to live. The old voice will try to argue with you. It will say, but you have no evidence of this. You have failed before. You are being unrealistic. When this happens, you simply say, that was the old me. I am becoming new. You do not argue with the old voice. You do not try to convince it. You simply choose to listen to the new voice you are creating after 3 days of this discipline. Something powerful happens. The new conversation starts to feel natural. The new identity starts to feel real. The new reality starts to manifest in your circumstances. You begin to see evidence that your transformed self-talk is working. 3 days from now, you will not be the same person who started listening to this message. But the real question is not what happens in those 3 days. The real question is what happens on day 4, day 10, day 100. How do you make this transformation permanent? How do you ensure that the new conversation becomes your natural way of thinking for the rest of your life? Let me tell you about David, a man who understood this principle better than anyone I have ever met. David was a prison guard who worked the night shift at a maximum security facility for 15 years. He was surrounded by the worst conversations imaginable. He heard inmates talk about hopelessness, anger, and failure every single day, slowly, without realizing it. David began to adopt the same language pattern. He started talking about how unfair life was, how the system was rigged, how good things never happened to people like him. David's life began to mirror his conversations. His marriage fell apart, his health deteriorated, his finances crumbled. He was becoming exactly what he listened to every day, but one night, something happened that changed everything. An older inmate approached him and said something that stopped David in his tracks. God, you talk just like us prisoners now. You have become a prisoner in your own mind. That statement shook David to his core. He realized that even though he could leave the prison every morning, he was carrying prison thinking with him everywhere he went. That night, David made a decision that saved his life. He decided to become a guard over his own thoughts, just like he was a guard over those prisoners. He decided that no negative thought would be allowed to run free in his mind without being challenged. David created what he called his mental security system. Every morning before work, he would spend 10 minutes programming his mind with powerful declarations. I am in control of my thoughts. I choose my words carefully. I speak life and possibility over every situation. I am not affected by the negativity around me because I am protected by the positivity within me. During his shift, whenever he heard inmates speaking words of defeat instead of agreeing or joining in, David would silently say to himself, I reject that conversation. I choose to think differently. I am surrounded by negativity, but I am not controlled by it. He turned the prison into his personal training ground for mental strength. The transformation was incredible. Within 6 months, David's supervisor noticed that he was the only guard who never called in sick, never complained, and always had a positive attitude despite working in such a difficult environment. Within a year, David was promoted to head of security. Within 2 years, he had started a consulting business helping other correctional facilities improve their staff training programs. But the most amazing part of David's story happened 3 years later. David was invited back to speak to the inmates at the same prison where he used to work. He told them exactly what I am telling you today. He taught them how to change their internal conversation. Many of those men who had been in and out of prison for decades began to transform their thinking. Several of them were released and never came back. They broke cycles of criminal behavior by breaking cycles of criminal thinking. David learned what you must understand. Your environment does not have to determine your internal reality. You can be surrounded by negativity and still maintain positivity. You can be in difficult circumstances and still speak words of possibility. You can face challenges and still declare victory. But this only happens when you make the conscious decision to guard your thoughts like your life depends on it, because it does. This is how you make your transformation permanent. You treat your mind like the sacred space it is. You do not allow just any thought to take up residence there. You become selective about what you think, what you say, and what you allow others to say around you. You understand that every conversation is either building you up or tearing you down. And you choose conversations that build. You create morning rituals that program your mind for success before the world has a chance to program it for failure. You establish evening practices that review the day and reinforce positive patterns. You surround yourself with people who speak life, not death. You read books, listen to messages, and consume content that supports your new way of thinking. Most importantly, you remember that this new conversation affects everyone around you. When you start speaking differently to yourself, you start speaking differently to your family. When you change your internal dialogue, you change your external relationships. When you become someone who expects good things to happen, good things start happening not just to you. Your children will learn to speak to themselves the way they hear you speak to yourself. Your spouse will be influenced by the energy you bring to your relationship. Your co-workers will notice that something has changed about you. Your friends will either rise to match your new standard or remove themselves from your life. You will become a magnet for people who think like you think and speak like you speak. This is your moment right now. As you hear these words, you have a choice to make. You can treat this like interesting information that you might try someday. Or you can treat this like the life-changing revelation it is meant to be. You can make excuses about why this will not work for you, or you can make the commitment to prove that it will. 3 days, 72 hours. That is all I am asking you to invest in creating the most important transformation of your life, starting tomorrow morning. You will speak to yourself like someone who was born to win. You will catch every negative thought and replace it with a positive declaration. You will program your mind for success instead of allowing it to default to failure. Your new life is waiting for you on the other side of your new conversation. The question is not whether this works. The question is whether you will work it. Your future is listening to what you say to yourself today. Make sure you are speaking words that create the tomorrow you want to live in. The conversation starts now.